Good evening, Danvers. This is the topic of the town news on December 19th, 2019, and we're filming at around 5 p.m. Today I have
Matthew Duggan. Good
Matthew
evening.
and John Toomey.
Howdy.
We are here on a every 2-week basis, and hopefully you'll keep on watching our show because we are the only show in town that focuses on Danvers, not the national swamp, not the state swamp, but the Danvers swamp. Transparency and independent reporting is our motto. The topics of the town news reporting is direct and comprehensive. We will always report only the truth, sometimes with our opinion included. So we're human. Today, we attended a sad occasion where Stan Brown, Stan Brown. Clip number 1, we had the occasion of Stan's funeral at Lyons Funeral Home. And it was a very solemn occasion. Stan died at 59. He was a selectman in town back in 2004, 5, and 6, I believe. And he was a good friend to the residents. He has been very active in his camp in Maine, where he does hunting and fishing all the time, and that he's going to be missed doing that. So Stan, we appreciate and we offer our condolences to Betsy and the family, the Point family. The next item on our agenda is the technical stuff from the selectmen's meeting. Well, you want to talk about the last Tuesday's meeting?
The one that was canceled?
The one that was canceled because it rained. My God, I'm telling you, it's tough to be a selectman these days. You don't even go out in the snow and ice.
Maybe they had some last-minute shopping they needed to complete.
Well, maybe that's what they called it off for. So there is really no update, but I have some significant updates in regard to some of the meetings that I attend. Well, I would like to, first of all, report on the Beverly Regional Airport lawsuit update. I have, as far back as 2018, October, I attended the commissioner's meeting at the Beverly Regional Airport, and the management team embarked on a witch hunt to attack, discredit, and deny access to private Danvers resident. Mark Zuberek, an elected Danvers town meeting member, was denied access to public areas of the airport. Most notably, he was denied press access in gathering interview information for this cable production. I will not go into the details behind the scenes, but this lawsuit took 13 months. One of the first accomplishments of the effort to sue the city of Beverly Airport commissioners, the airport manager, and anybody else that was in line. The Attorney General writes in their opinion on July 25th, following our review, we find that the Commission violated the open meeting law by denying Mark Zuberek access to its meetings. For the reasons stated above, we find the Commission violated an open meeting law. We order immediate and future compliance with the open meeting law and caution that similar violations in the future may be considered evidence of intent to violate the law and will be punished violently. The violations continued for 13 months. This was only one objection by the manager of the Beverly Airport. The settlement that was handled on September 3rd, 2019, came to an agreement, and the issues will come out as a result of this agreement. An undisclosed cash settlement was reached, an agreed amount to be paid as part of this agreement. Number one, the defendant's airport commission will rescind the no trespass order against Mark Zuberek issued on or about November 1, 2018, and allow him to access the Beverly Regional Airport on the same items as other members of the public or media. Public access. First Amendment rights. Number two, the defendant's airport commission will communicate in writing to MassDOT Aeronautics Division that they have rescinded the no trespass order against Mark Zuberek and will request that MassDOT rescind its notice of violation issued to Mark Zuberek on November 1, 2018. Number three, the defendants will allow Mark Zuberek to fly in and out of the airport with and upon invitation of anyone who flies there, subject to any restrictions generally applicable to other members of the public. Number four, the defendants will allow Zuberek access to restricted areas of the airport when invited by tenant business owners, subject to and in conformity with applicable federal, state, and airport laws and regulations. And that's all I ever wanted. I wanted public access. The defendants will issue the following public statement, which is item number 5. The City of Beverly, the Beverly Airport Commission, Gloria Bullion, and Mark Zuberek have resolved in the lawsuit Mark Zuberek brought against the city, the commission, and Ms. Bullion. The commission has rescinded its no trespass order against Mark Zuberek, and other parties have amicably resolved all issues between them. And I'd like to close that I am committed to pursue and complete this matter to conclusion and clear my name and prevent these public bodies from doing this to anyone else, especially the Danvers residents. 3 months have passed, and I'm still waiting for some of the final settlements. However, the most obvious one, the no trespass order, was the one that's holding me back from going back to the airport and report on their meetings. That report will be scheduled for the second Monday of January. I'm coming. So I hope this puts things in perspective of what has been going on. And the Board of Selectmen, in their wisdom, have decided not to even consider me for airport commissioner, and I can understand that now. But the thing is that Danvers deserves good representation at the commissioner's table because we are affected by the operations and the flights that are coming in and out, and now we're getting jets, corporate jets, which are small. But there are plans, and there's a master plan that's going on that may include, what's the Boeing plane that's
747?
The
7
max,
Max.
the 737.
737, which has been very clearly defined as the runway at Beverly Airport is now 5,001 feet. They need 5,000 feet for the MX-37. So I hope to report on this, and I will bring that back to you in January and February. that's the end of my story on that. The other item I would like to just quickly report on is I attended the Municipal Light Board. The Municipal Light Board on Tuesday has decided that they're going to approve a budget that includes an 11% increase in the base rate for our electric usage. It's going up from 9.2 to 10.2%, 10.2 cents per kilowatt hour. And this is extraordinary. They have spent in the last 3 years over $20 million in expenses for traffic signals, traffic intersections, retirement system, $5 million they've diverted when Wayne left. Now they have diverted another $4.1 million, meaning $10 million going towards the retirement system. Why do the residents not get a break? And now they want to increase the electric rates again.
Well, this doesn't make any sense. They're operating on a profit. They are getting more money in the rates than the cost of running the electric light department. In other words, they're making money.
Absolutely.
And it's being used for various other systems without getting the approval of the taxpayer. The taxpayer isn't even aware that, yeah, you're paying your bill for the electric light, but also that bill is paying for other factors. And this is not how this should be run.
This is a tax increase for every single individual that uses electricity and water. Water was increased 15% about a month and a half ago. So it seems like everything is going up, and the only thing that the taxpayers can do about it is sit back and enjoy it. No, taxpayers have to rise up and challenge this, because this cannot go on, because we're going to be getting tax increases and rate increases as long as nobody objects. So that's the end of that story. Water and sewers, another one that we just talked about a month ago, 2 months ago. 15%. And what was it for? We had a show on that. What was it for? Was diverting money for the Canal Street garage that they initiated for $2.2 million. Now it's up to over $3 million. And that money has to come out of the rates. So, Danvers, get ready. Taxes are going up. Bills for water are going up. And now electric company bills are going up.
Well, what is obvious is that the taxes that you're paying, your rates are going up. The rates for water and electricity are going up. You're paying more and more money. Is it worth it?
Well, I don't want to exaggerate, but it's mismanagement of the companies. And the thing is that there's no discussion about economizing, about reducing the workforce or the usage. The usage is basically the same as last year. So the only thing that I can see is that every single line item in the new budget increases in salaries, retirement, health insurance. We talked about last show. 86% of the budget is allocated to 4 different contributors: retirement, health insurance or health and welfare insurance, schools, and I don't remember the third one, but it was contributing, and it was eating up all of that $86 million, which is the tax revenue that they collect. So I think the town needs to learn a lesson from this and start planning for the future, because right now we're just spending money like crazy. And it's no different in the state, no different in the federal government. But the swamp is getting deeper in Danvers now, so we need to start looking at it. Okay.
Can I speak to that? Because
Absolutely.
some of the expenditures from electric and from water and sewer are for infrastructure improvements. So we've seen, for example, the street lights have all been replaced with LEDs. That has dramatically reduced the cost of providing lighting. For water and sewer, we're seeing projects like the Frostfish Brook, hardening of the banks, and also with water main replacements. The infrastructure in town with the old cast iron pipes are failing more often now, leading to water main breaks. So those are legitimate expenditures and legitimate projects. There are some that are questionable, such as the Maple Street traffic lights at Summer Street. That's kind of a questionable expenditure, but I think for the most part, you know, we have a very educated workforce, technically advanced workforce, so that's gonna cost money. We want to have the best people working for the electric and the water and sewer, so that's going to cost money.
And I agree with you, Matthew, but the issue is that your meters that we grabbed as a grant and then we paid through the nose for them, and now they're all getting replaced because of warranty issues, they're failing. The incandescent lamps that were replaced with, with the new bulbs, those are proving out not to be as efficient as what they have originally estimated, because the report at the meeting on Tuesday basically stated that maybe we got 50% of the savings. We didn't get all of that anticipated savings.
Yeah, but what about the replacement? So they like we see at our
The
home.
replacement are not being as efficient as what they expect.
Well, they don't have to replace them as often, I believe, the bulbs.
That doesn't matter, but it cost us an awful lot of money. This was not done by a grant. This was done on our nickel.
Yeah, I think.
And the thing is, the lights are beautiful. I like the lights, but the thing is, let's not kid our our neighbors and our taxpayers into that this is such a grand thing. Let's be cost efficient. And the thing is, the electric company is not being cost efficient.
My bills seem to be month over month for many years, seem to be always right in the same range, maybe around $50. So
Well,
it doesn't seem like there's any dramatic increases that I
Wait
can
till
see.
January. Your rate's going to go up 11%, so you will have an increase there.
Yeah, and also the point is, you've been paying the bill all these years, and what you're paying is more than what they need. They've been running the company very efficiently, and they've been using the extra money that they get for various other projects that they don't have to get approval for. And that's the point. My point is that the taxpayer should know what's going on, and he doesn't.
Yeah, the money that's collected by electric and water and sewer should be retained for those purposes and not used for other areas of town government.
Matthew, I've been preaching that for the last 5 years. And the problem is that nobody's listening. Nobody from the residents comes out to these meetings, because I have to go and search and find the agenda for the meeting because they don't publicize it. I have been recording these meetings because I take my own time and just set up a camera and listen to what's going on. So look on your data on the Danvers TV, and you will see under the government section the electric company recording of the meeting that was held this last Tuesday. And you will see for yourself. That's the reason I spend the time, and it's about a 2.5, 3 hour meeting. So they discuss everything. But the thing is that the Municipal Light Board doesn't make any decisions. all those decisions are made by the town manager and the director of DPW. So there's a conflict there that's going to have to get resolved. So let's get into a more Christmassy,
Festive.
John, I'm going to put my hat on. What do you think?
Ho, ho,
I'm going to go this way here, right? To the right? All right. Oh, wow. Hey, that looks pretty good. I like that.
ho.
All I
Make
need
sure you
is
put
a
it in
pillow.
the right direction. 'Cause
I don't need a pillow. Well, one thing that we want to do is let's run clip number 2, which is the lighting of the tree, or setting and lighting of the Toomey tree.
This is a fantastic situation that developed this year. And as a for-life resident of Danvers, practically, it really made an impression on me. It means something. 1984, Richard and George Toomey planted this tree in their front yard. And over the years it grew, and they've been having problems with it, so they donated it to the town. And as you can see, it is the 2019 Christmas tree. Beautiful color, lighting, background. And since it's called a Toomey tree, it really makes an impression upon my Toomey family.
And it is, congratulations, thank you very much for somebody donating that, because...
Well, it's a typical Danvers situation. The Toomeys have been around for a long time. And there's been a lot of, the families in town have been around, and there's various groups of families. And the Toomeys are, like the rest of them, they've been here for years, and it's just something that they donated, and it really made an impression. But it makes them feel part of the town.
And John, look at the electric company spending money on erecting the tree, which is a very appropriate thing for them to do.
Yes.
The thing is that we have the whole town working on this to decorate and improve the downtown square area, and that is a beautiful tree.
Yeah, I think the residents would be upset if you somehow didn't put the tree up and light it.
I know.
So I think they're willing to pay for that service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
That's
something.
kind of what makes small towns kind of.
Yeah,
well,
we're
all
no
towns.
longer a small town. We're
Well,
26,000
at
people.
heart.
At heart, we think we're small.
Right.
But it's a beautiful, look at the
That's
sky
awesome.
against
Yeah,
that.
that's a great shot.
So John, thank you very much for taking those
Well,
pictures.
Don't thank me. Thank my cousins and their situation.
Well, why don't we extend our thanks for the town, because we have all worked in this town in one
Yes.
way or another. So thank you very much. Oh yeah, I'm telling you, I should have brought my cowboy hat. That would have been better. But we're in a festive mood. So now what I wanted to do is, last year we had a very unique type of a Christmas show where we had some stories from the military. There you go, John. Now you're looking good. Now you're looking good. There you go. All right. And what we have is, I wanted to present some of the past and some of the new stories, because Matthew was not here last year with us. And John, if you would start, I just want to sort of reminisce on, how do we celebrate Christmas in Danvers back in your childhood days?
Well, back then, the situation was entirely different. Danvers back then was still mostly agricultural. I was brought up on Liberty Street, and we used to call it International Street. It was consisted of Liberty Street was a straight line and mostly houses right on the street. And then the backyards were big fields, and the fields were mostly cow fields. We had quite a few cows, and we had a substantial amount of farms in Danvers. I grew up, 8, 9, 10 years old working on farms, the Rest farms, the Innes farms, and so forth. And Christmas was more or less a neighborhood situation. We had, I call it the International Street, an awful lot of homes had grandparents, parents, and children.
Right.
And a lot of the grandparents spoke 2 languages. We had a large percentage of immigration. And Christmas was quite diverse. We were here for quite some time, so we had what we considered an American Christmas. But there was the Greek, Italian, French, Polish Christmases on the street. So as children, we really had a wonderful situation. We could wander from house to house and see different versions of Christmas, and especially food, gwonkies, kielbasa. I mean, it was fantastic. My mother made the dandelion wine. The Moroses made the red wine. It was, that was the kind of thing that went on during the neighborhood situation. It was fantastic. And Christmas was a family-oriented. It was families growing up. They moved away from the family, but they lived in Danvers, so that you had a family like the Toomeys and had all sorts of brothers and sisters scattered all over town. So Christmas became sort of like 1, 2, 3, 4 Christmases in different families. And it was a variety and beautiful. And it was quite family-oriented, at-home oriented, but also it was covered several days. You more or less had a Christmas, a religious Christmas. You had a family Christmas type of situation. You had a neighborhood open house type of Christmas. It was that beautiful type of situation.
That sounds familiar. I will be speaking to that on the Polish side. Matthew, how about you?
Oh, Christmas when I was younger, I grew up in Goshen, New York, so this was back in the 60s and 70s. Christmas revolved around church, so engaged with a lot of church activities, and especially fond of the midnight masses with my grandparents. They lived down the street from us, and we'd go to the Catholic church for midnight mass. It was quite festive, and it's just a small family get-together. I recall, I was thinking about this the other day, that in our downtown area, they would have a Christmas tree similar to what Danvers has, but they would also string colored bulbs across the streets from like power pole to power pole. So from a distance, you would see a considerable number of large Christmas lights, which was kind of added to the festivity, especially after a snowstorm.
Some towns still do that.
Yeah.
If you drive around, you'll see in different areas. So how about in Danvers? You have any traditions that you follow in Danvers? Now, don't tell me the ones that you told me before.
I mean, it's just kind of just get caught up with the whole Christmas spirit.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that now, even now, in Danvers, we have the menorah at the library
Right.
and the lighting of the candles at the library. So we have diverted our, diversified
Yeah.
our.
More inclusive, right?
Well, I think we've always been all-inclusive.
Yeah,
It's
but I
just
think
a
it's-
matter that we're willing to show it now.
Yeah.
And in the past, it was more reserved.
Well, I think it was more of a Christian kind of thing where
Yeah.
it was like that was the way it was. I mean,
Well,
Danvers was an entirely different situation than we have today, as far as, if you want to look at it as religion. East Danvers and the port and so forth were basically Catholic. Downtown was basically Protestant.
Right. It still is.
And there are very few Jewish people. Today, we've become more
Accepting and outgoing.
and more people have moved here, and
Yes.
they're part of the population.
It's called diversity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, being diverse altogether, I'd like to just bring you a story that I think I did last year, but I'm going to embellish it a little bit. And I'm good at embellishing things, so that's okay. So if you could, Nate, if you could put up clip number 3. This is my childhood, and well, it's not my childhood, but that's a gentleman that I met, years ago. But this was a Santa Claus that was at Cell Signal down on Route 128. They have a Christmas party every year. And this gentleman doesn't need a pillow, doesn't need a beard trim. He's got a white beard, and he sounds like a Santa Claus. He looks like a Santa Claus, and he is Santa Claus. So, if we go to clip number 4, I just wanted to, introduce a little bit of the past. This is, and we spoke about this last year, and we reported on it, is St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas is a saint of giving to the children and the poor. When back in, 300 AD. But his feast is celebrated on December 6th. And in Europe, specifically, well, most of Eastern Europe, some of the Western Europe has changed, but Holland celebrates that very, very well. Santa Claus is the deliverer of gifts, basically. This is the commercial side of Christmas. It was eliminated from Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day are more, like you said, more religious, family-oriented, and they got away from the commercial side. But on December 6th is the St. Nicholas comes around and delivers, and in Eastern Europe, when I was there, it's mostly fruits and candy and things like that for the kids, because it's another Santa Claus version of St. Nicholas that's celebrated on December 6th, but it's only related to the kids, to the good kids. You don't want any coal in your stocking or under your bed, or it used to be that the St. Nicholas had a whip, so it was the old
Yikes.
days. But the thing is that everything about Santa Claus goes back to St. Nicholas and other in their past. If you go to clip number 5, Nate, please. This is a transition now going from St. Nicholas to Santa Claus. Basically, it's the bishop's hat, because that's what the St. Nicholas was. He's a saint, but he was a bishop at the time. So it's a transition to the Santa Claus beard and the red and white clothing. Go to the next clip, number 6, please. Now,
There we go.
this is Father Christmas. There's the version of Santa Claus that we know, that we have. That was in the early 1900s, 1880s, and that became a symbol of Christmas, and it was the commercial side of the Christmas celebration. But as you said earlier, it's a religious holiday for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and the Poland is very, very 99% religion, Catholics. So this was another version of what was happening over the years. You go to clip number 7. And here's my wife, and I want to wish her a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because we will not be on the air. But that's the Santa Claus from CSE. And she has enjoyed that presentation that they do, a Christmas Carol. They have a lot of fun, and they enjoyed themselves. This is the guy that's always Santa Claus. So he's been like that forever. Go to the next clip, please. And I think we may be too far down. But let me just conclude. Preparation for Christmas Eve is all related to food, to the birth of Christ, to the Christmas decorations. And what I brought today is a Christmas decoration that we have here in this country, but these were actually candles that we lit with a real fire and clipped them onto the tree. And that's how we lit up the tree on Christmas Eve. You didn't do it every other night. I mean, it was only done on special occasion. Yeah. But I found these, and these reminded me of what we used to do. And it's a tradition. But we don't do that anymore because of all the fires that have been started. So the firemen were too busy. But Christmas Eve is the awaiting of the birth of Christ. And on December 25th, it's always a celebration with family, like they did in Danvers forever. And I think every culture has that kind of a relationship. On December 24th, we shall continue the old-fashioned tradition of having meatless supper with extra plate for a stranger who has no other place to celebrate the birth of Christ. Tradition continues with sharing our bounty, and we always have an extra plate at the table because that's a tradition that's been brought back, and everybody does this. It's for the people that don't have anywhere else to go. So it's a sharing of our traditional attitudes. So I think we had enough Christmas. We love Christmas, and as you can see, we're all dressed festive. And I have my snowflake tie on. So it was... No, they're just snowflekes. Okay. This has been around forever. And I wear it just once a year. Like me, right. All right, so I think what we need to do is we have limited time left, but we'd like to go to clip number 8. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to continue the discussion in regard to the new planning department initiatives of the new zoning, 40R, or whether it's called 40R or not, doesn't matter. But I think what we need to do is Danvers is being presented as a model for growth. But traffic, parking and density is getting in the way. We have a very talented and professional planning department, but we must teach the department that this is Danvers and not Lexington. So I just wanted to make that point because I don't think our planning department understands the culture and the relationship that Danvers residents have with the town, the square, Maple Street, High Street, and how much they hate the 128 and High Street interchange. So if we can run number 8, clip number 8, this is, John, would you like to talk to this?
This is, they were talking about when the zoning starts to take place. The first layer, of housing and businesses will be businesses, and then the second, third floors will be housing and so forth. The retail supposedly will come into the first floors and so forth. If you look at downtown Danvers right now, you see basically the first floors basically are businesses. And here's examples of various towns that show you what happens when you start to build up. It's like running down in a valley. You have all these cars parked here. Why? Because there's no parking. You have the first floors where they do have businesses, but also you have a lot of housing. Danvers is becoming an attractive town to come to, but the thing you have to remember is it's not a low-rate town. It's an expensive town, and the realistic forecast is it's going to get even worse. It's going to be very, very expensive. And as you can see here, here's examples of what happens when you build up. All of a sudden, the streets are packed, and they're packed 24 hours a day.
Right.
And people who have housing here, who live here, and where do they park their cars? Right there on the street. And they have to sometimes drive around for hours to find parking spaces. These are good examples of what you have. Very few trees, very many cars, and I took these at early Sunday morning without purposely so there wouldn't be that much traffic. And this is when you see the business start or when you see the day start, all of a sudden traffic, it completely floods the place.
Right. See, John, I don't know what your feeling is, but I believe this is what the planning department and the planning board is planning for downtown Danvers, because that is exactly what they're looking at. They're looking at first-story commercial or sales or whatever you want to call it, and the second and third story as being residential. And the thing is that unless you provide parking and traffic directions to alleviate the congestion in front of the buildings, you have to provide them some space to park in the back. Because I don't care what they say, that a walking city is not a city without vehicles.
Well, let me point out something else. This is just like downtown Danvers.
Yeah.
But when you get off of downtown Danvers to the side streets, the roads are much narrower. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you start to have parking on both sides of the street. Oh my God. What happens? Basically, the towns that I've visited, they've made most of the sides off the center side streets are one way, and it becomes complete chaotic.
Was that clip from New York City?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, yeah. I knew it.
You can recognize it?
Yeah.
All right.
Fourth largest city in the U.S. So to speak to the one-way street, we already have that not far from Maple Street downtown, where I think Central Ave and I think Toomey Street. So before you get to the one-way thing, first you you allow parking only one side of the street, because the street's really basically just 3 vehicles wide. So today we have vehicles parked on both sides, and you only have a single corridor to travel in. The next step is to just allow parking on one side, which just dramatically increases the density, because now you've lost all those spaces. So.
Right. Well, the thing that we discussed during our last show, and we went into a lot more detail, the current planning board has structured this zoning to support the requirements of the 40R, which is an extension of the hot watt properties down all the way to 128. However,
What's 40R?
Well, 40R is a incentive plan by the state with unfunded liability after the fact, because I obtained a letter that was issued to the town manager and the planning department on October 28th, and what they have submitted and what has been a result of it is that, in addition, because DHCD would generally treat the existing and proposed district as a single 40R district.
What's 40R mean? What's the restriction?
40R are restrictions in the number of units. I did it.
It's for affordable housing. It's to promote affordable housing.
All they have to do is have 10%.
20, I think. It's up to
This
20.
requires 20.
All right, so
this is-
80% will be expensive housing.
Well, see
Market rate. Yeah.
what happens with this is that with the 20%, you are increasing the key things that are happening. The density is being increased. The congestion, which is density, is being increased. Traffic is not being alleviated, and the parking is not being provided. What the planning department, in their great wisdom, and the planning board have used the ideas that they can buy parking spaces from adjoining buildings, or now they're looking at buying the parking spaces from the town, Hobart Street. They want to use half of those parking spaces for dedicated to any expansion of buildings that is going to be done on Maple Street. So this is similar to what's happening in Salem. Salem is doing the same thing. The big municipal parking lot that is situated by the post office down there, that lot is being supported by funds from the condos that have been...
Danvers doesn't have any large parking areas.
Well, they think that we do. But let me finish this.
All right.
So, 40R district, due to their close proximity and shared eligible location pursuant to Chapter 760, the department will treat the two districts as one for the purposes of zoning incentives. This is that $200,000 that they got as an incentive. And I've called it a bribe from day one, but that's what it is. Eligible and associated calculation. As such, based on the documentation provided, adoption of the proposed district would not immediately qualify the town for any additional zoning incentive payments. When added to the 111 incentive units associated with the MST&D, corresponding letter of approval on October 1, 2018, the additional 70 incentive units. And all they're looking at is 70 incentive units that would be created on continuation of Maple and High Street associated with the proposed district do not achieve the 201 units minimum required to trigger the payment increase above the 200,000 already given. So basically on October 28th, the planning board and the town has basically been notified that the proposed zoning, and the zoning is probably 300 pages long here with all kinds of criteria. This is the first time I've seen it was 2 weeks ago on November 26th, because I demanded to have a copy. And then they finally gave me a copy of the letter. But the letters is very clear that we do not have that kind of a redevelopment going on downtown towards 128. Maybe Hotwat and the properties around there are concentrated enough to trigger the incentive payment, but are we there for the bribe from the state? The state governor is pushing this idea onto the surrounding communities to increase the density and provide housing for anybody that comes out of the city, because they can't afford to live in the city.
So I disagree with you. The people who are going to come here aren't considering price. They are going to be building and purchasing expensive apartments, condos, and housing.
Our homes in the town of Danvers are already at an average of over $500,000 per unit. And they're climbing, and all the town has been talking about, the planning department and the building inspection department, is that we're getting all these $1 million homes lately.
Yeah, it's not unique to Danvers. It's like that
That's
all
right.
over eastern Massachusetts.
That's right. But I think what we want to do is we're running out of time, but I think we need to continue this discussion. And what we're planning to do is we're planning to convene a forum of town meeting members, because basically that's who's going to verify or confirm the proposed zoning at town meeting. And we want to gather to have a heart-to-heart discussion between ourselves, between the town meeting members, instead of listening to what the propaganda is coming in from town hall. So John has been tasked with getting the town hall to agree on letting us use the Toomey room. Being a Toomey, you may have some pull, I don't know.
So the town already has a February 1st workshop for town meeting members. By then, we'll have the actual warrant article.
We should have that in the next 2 weeks.
So the warrant's been closed,
Yes.
and then there'll be a review on January 7th by the Board of Selectmen. So it's hard, as you mentioned, there's a considerable amount of material involved here, but it needs to be whittled down to something that is easily definable about what town meeting members will be voting on February 10th.
This is the reason I've been asking for a summary, executive summary of what this whole proposal is all about.
Well, I think it's still a fluid topic.
The thing is, the warrant has been closed on December 13th. That's when this article should have been closed and distributed to the town meeting members,
yeah.
because the town meeting members do not have an extreme amount of time, and I don't know why we're holding this town meeting, special town meeting in February when everybody's in Florida. So it's kind of suspicious, but this is nothing new.
Well, I don't think 40R is actually on the table now, because I think we're going to dance up to the edge of 40R, but we're going to kind of pick and choose some of the attributes of it. For example, reducing the amount of required parking. Today, many dwelling units require 2 parking spaces per unit, and I think the objective is to reduce that to maybe 1.5.
That's exactly what they're talking about, 1.5, because I asked specifically the question at the planning board, how many spaces for a 32-unit complex? And they came back, 24, calculated. But there are so many variables in there that where those 24 can come from, and this thing is slated to become a overlay district. That's what they want. But the thing is, what you're doing then, instead of having a zoning amendment, they're allowing the overlay district to mix commercial, industrial, residential, all together in one, free for all. And I've seen something like this happen on 114 and on that district, and we need to really consider this.
Well, I think it's a mistake to just hard code this warrant article and not allow any flexibility at town meeting, because if it's just presented as take it or leave it, then I think it's just going to be leave it, because town meeting members have a lot of different perspectives about how this should be handled. So there needs to be some flexibility to allow amendments or whatever to kind of tweak it on the floor.
The problem is that most town meeting members open up their book when they sit down.
Yeah, well,
and that's
they need
the
to be
thing.
involved
we need
now.
to get involved.
Yeah.
So let's go to clip number 9. Here's a New Year's resolution, U.S. debt, town debt, zoning debt, whatever you want to call it. Pass it on. Pass this along to the next generation. And that's where it's going. So the thing is that we have to be careful of what we wish for, because this zoning amendment is not as cracked up as it is being sold to us. And last year we had a very hard sell from the Board of Selectmen, from the town planning department, and planning board. We need to question them a lot more. We need to raise those questions, and that's what we want to do. All right, we got one more clip, and it is John's clip, and this should make us all happy. Clip number 10.
Wandering around town, I've picked up on a lot of things that are interesting. This is one of the most popular spots in town at the Pet Express down at the mall, and it's where the dogs are exhibited in the front windows. And as you can see, the crowd comes by. The kids are really enthusiastic, and the adults really are enthusiastic.
They're making some
And
more
the dogs
puppies.
love the attention they get. It's fantastic.
It's prison for pets.
Oh, those puppies are fun. But what I'd like to do, we have 30 seconds left, and I would like to wish every resident, and especially my wife and my daughters and their husbands, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You do this.
Yep. Merry Christmas, Danvers. Happy Hanukkah.
I'll say a prayer for all of you.
Thank you, John. We need it.
Happy New Year.